Brandon, is it going on, dear brother? If it turns black, it means that it was not from the kingdom of light. I guess we'll resurrect this. Beautiful. Excited as usual. Excited also because I'm coming towards the end of the book of Ecclesiastes, apart from tonight, 2 more weeks, and then we will be done. I know that you have faithfully turned in chapter 10 because I didn't want to read the whole chapter, although I could have read a psalm and so on. But this is the way I was guided to do it tonight. We are still on the slide. I don't know if this will work. It will. We are still on the group of teaching from Koheleth, beloved, from 7:1 to 12:8, of how to cope with life. And once again, I need to request grace from you. These are not messages that are easy. Sometimes when you come to some verses, they can be hard, but I will try to respect the context as much as I can and to provide you also with applications as to when you pass the door. I trust God. I'm not going to ask you right now, but I know that you have learned something out of it. Not everything can be remembered, and I respect it. But I know that the 2 eyes type of thing, I know that some of it stayed with you. And that's my prayer with a heart open right now, that the Old Testament often deems old scriptures that can be for some irrelevant for today, that they can be relevant. Last week I gave you 2 things, the sovereignty of God last week, and I told you also, passing the door, remember that He is sovereign and God is on your side. He has already approved your work. If you have a heart to do the work properly, not botching, your work is already approved. Do your mistake, serve the Lord. That's how we develop a relationship with Him. That was last week. Here, tonight in chapter 10, Solomon or the preacher. When I say Koheleth, the preacher, or Solomon, it's all synonymous. Takes up a variety of situations dealing with a number of facets of life. So that's where I need your grace to carry on with this. And we are much in keeping also with coping with life, with these examples that he will give. And we need to keep only to an extent the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel, we call them a nation, but they're not reckoned among the nation because of the special status that they have as being the wife of Jehovah, which I know that some people do struggle with it, but Deuteronomy is a marriage contract. So we need to keep them in mind with the good that they have had, which was very short under the reign of Solomon, except at the end of his days, when he fell into idolatry, and what came after him. So that's why I just want you to keep that in mind here. Keep therefore and do them, that's the law. For this is your wisdom. We talked about wisdom exceedingly with Koheleth. And your understanding in the sight of the peoples. The peoples are the Gentiles. That shall hear these statutes and say, surely, well, this is a great nation, is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there on the planet that has a God so near unto them, as Jehovah or Elohim is whensoever we call upon Him? It's a question. And what great nation is there that has statutes and ordinances so righteous as all this law which I set before you today? And I don't need to explain that they dropped the ball. I don't need to explain that to you, that they took the Mosaic law, the 613 commandment, and they turned it into a means of righteousness by building a fence and coming out with the Mishnah and so on and so forth. No, the little ball? Not necessary. Okay? So I want you to have this on the back burner. Today's message, your chapter 10 in totality, I divided it in 5 units. Easy. The first unit is the danger of losing one's way. Whether you like the titles or not, I debated between choices and I came up with this. So now we read Ecclesiastes chapter 10, 1, 2, and 3, and I make comments. You come with me. The text is not there. That's why, beloved, I would be delighted to have you with a Bible when you come to our congregation. Okay, so now some are difficult. The danger of losing one's way. Okay, come with me. Dead flies make a perfumer's oil stink. So a little foolishness is weightier than wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart directs him towards the right, but the foolish man's heart directs him towards the left. And when the fool walks along the road, circle the road, his sense is lacking, and he demonstrates to everyone that he is a fool. Let me make a few comments. Often, why do we have problem? It takes only one fool to create a terrific amount of harm. And that's applicable for us today in churches and so on, in governments and so forth. You elect a king in the time of Israel, it takes one fool to bring the whole nation down. Here, the flies are flies that brings death. They are called flies of death. They are poisoning flies. They poison the perfume either by their excrement or a poisonous sting. So, what's the teaching of it? A very small trace of folly. I've never seen flies poo-poo, by the way. A very small trace of folly may prove very detrimental and very destructive. It's always easier when I did that in the past, bring somebody on that stool here. I'm 200 pounds. I can take Terry, which is a big man also, put Terry on the stool, and with one arm like this, pull on Terry, and he would come down. It takes just a little exertion of strength to bring somebody down. But if I take Terry in my arm, lift up the stool, and I want to take Terry on the stool in my arms, I'm going to have to exert a terrific amount of strength. So let's learn something about it. It takes only a tiny piece of something to make something stink. And it's exactly the same thinking of Paul. Your glorying is not good. Don't you know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? You might be wondering why I'm so picky here when we display our table of the bread and the wine. The bread in the church has to be unleavened because leaven is always a symbol of sin. And a little leaven leavens the whole lump. And our Christ Jesus was sinless. So that's the same train of thought. You have Paul writing that down to the Corinthians here, and that's what he has in mind. He read Ecclesiastes in the proper language. A fly in your wine and a fly in your perfume can make the perfume stink. Do you remember Daniel? The cupbearer was taken away of his position because probably that the cupbearer was a little bit yawning and a fly ended up in the wine of the king. And it cannot happen. It's the cost of death. Okay? So, it can be seen in governments, societies, etc. And in many aspects of life that the little one person bring the trouble here. Most tragically, even in the body of Christ. So before we make a comment, before we get involved in something, make sure that you know what you're doing. One reckless word or act can forfeit a good beginning. That's why so many people, they engage in the life of Christ sometimes. A class that I do, and I will do it the fall 3 years. But they have the gossipers around, and it takes the people away. It forfeits the growth of the people. And we need to be careful to avoid such a thing. As far as the right and the left in verse 2 are concerned, did you know that the right and the left always has a proper connotation in the Old Testament? The right-hand side is always a place of honor. Okay? Scriptures. I have set Jehovah always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Covered by his honor and so on. That's why the king, Solomon and David had a place on his right-hand side and his mom could sit on that throne upon his permission. The judgment of the sheep and the goat. The sheep, pro-Semitic people in the Great Tribulation on the right. The goat, anti-Semitic on the left. Psalm 121 verse 5. Jehovah is my keeper, your keeper. Jehovah is your shade upon your right hand. Because it's a place of honor. 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 3. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre and took bribes and perverted justice. That's basically having a tendency to the left, like our verse 2 here. A wise man's heart directs towards the right, but the foolish man's heart directs towards the left. It doesn't matter my flaws. You know that I am honest with you. And last week I've been honest about a single part of my testimony. But what I would like you to be assured of, and it's not my work because it's only what I say, but God sees my heart. It's my desire here as a humble French Canadian, with the little that I know in a sense in the scriptures, is to direct you, not to me, but to the right. In that place of honor. Thank God I don't have a flock of 1,000 people. I don't need 1,000 people. I don't need 200 either. But my desire when I sit down there, doesn't matter where my heart is sometimes in my bank account or whatever I might be thinking because I'm a man of limitation. My heart is to bring you on his right-hand side by being anchored in the scriptures. Verse 3, folly betrays itself. Just observe the public behavior of those who multiply words and so on. A fool has no delight in understanding, but only that his heart may reveal itself. Look outside how the world is behaving. I don't need to give you more details on that. Are you still with me? No. Wake up. Are you still with me? Otherwise, I will crank the heat.
We're with you.
Thank you so much. How to cope with the politics of upside down? How do we cope with this? 4-7, come. And if the ruler's temper, circle temper, rises against you, do not abandon your position, because composure allays great offenses. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, like an error which goes forth from the ruler. Government, if you want. Folly is set in many exalted places, while rich men sit in humble place. I have seen slaves riding on horses and princes walking like slaves on the land. Give me an essay on this. Good luck. That was difficult for me to work out. How can it be understood for a moment here? When things seems upside down, unfair, unjust, the primary context is don't quit your job. Because the word here, keep your position, it's to keep your post. It goes to Israel a little bit. Because even things when seem upside down and unfair and unjust, are they still the covenanted nation? So keep your post. But I would like to give it a different twist here. Stay firm in your faith. Trust God. Okay? Stand firm. Keep your composure. Because have we been complaining lately in the last 2 years concerning the situation, and we are just on the elevation of a fourth wave right now? So keep your post, keep your position, keep your faith, despite of what they do when we have been shut down. Because we have been deemed clearly and very outright by our governments at large that we're not an essential entity. We are not an essential, have they called the workers in the medical field the heroes of the out front people? No pastors will be called an out front people. But you are more than out front people. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a grievous word stirs up anger. So the fourth wave, I already talked about it before you came in. Why don't we give up talking about it? Let's hold on to our post. Let's continue together to grow in faith. Proverbs 16:14. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it. Don't multiply word. Just one sentence. Keep your composure. My wife is smiling at me because François is a man that can multiply word. Guys, basically can all go right now. I'll carry on with the message because I'm the first one in need of it, but I know that you will stay. Proverbs 12:18. There is that speaks rashly like the piercing of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is the second shot of the vaccine, isn't it? When you speak to somebody that keeps his composure, and this is a behavior that I would like to have, I covet this because I'm a nervous temper, but when you speak to a person gifted with wisdom, one shot that he throws at you comes in your soul like a sword, but not piercing, healing. Word of a wife, be encouraged, my husband. Keep up the good faith. You're doing a good work. Don't be shy to encourage your people. How have you been deemed lately as not essential already? So what? Do what you have to do. Of course, on this earth, we're not essential. We don't belong here. But the message has to go out anyway. And the message here at the IBC and in many other churches as well has kept going out to the people. And I like it. I praise my God for this. Think Israel here with Solomon was the old age, and he has seen a declining kingdom. Rich men here are humiliated in the passage that I just read. The slaves ride on horses here. Out of pride, it's a negative, slaves riding on horses, meaning the rulers are upside down here, and the princes, they're like slave here. Folly in this passage is exalted, and wisdom is nullified. How many people do I have in front of me that should be here in position of elders? But you prefer to act like slave instead of having a place of eldership here that would exalt not you, but God. And now I'm doing everything by myself, because when you talk about the people to take an official position, they're afraid to do mistakes. Heck of a deal. I never do mistakes. That's why I take my position. I don't remember last time I've made a mistake. We use the same door as you used to come in. Use your wisdom wisely. Use your wisdom wisely. Ecclesiastes 8, 9, 10, 11. You come with me. Again, difficult. He who digs a pit may fall into it, and a serpent may bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stone may be hurt by them, and he who split logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and it does not sharpen its edge, then he must exert more strength. Wisdom has the advantage of giving success. If the serpent bites before being charmed, there is no profit for the charmer. One sentence. You have a little bit of wisdom, you cannot be without totally. Even in a state of maturity, you cannot have none because you have been regenerated. Use it wisely. That's the teaching of it here. Serpent and bite are used in verse 8 and 11. And he used that kind of format based upon the Hebrew structures. We call it a bracketing effect, like a stapler, schlang, 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 until the end. And the staple the whole issue here. Kohelet, the preacher, used four proverbs carrying potential dangers, fitting daily life. You know what it's all about? If you do trust, the guys have to wear a helmet and glasses. Because they have bang, 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 and all that kind of stuff. Digging a pit. Tearing down a wall in the Middle East where the serpent likes to keep from the sun and so on. Quarrying stone, nothing more dangerous than this. And splitting logs. Why be lazy and work harder than if necessary? My wife and I last week, we did a good job. Let me take pride. We buy a bed for Sophia, and we were put together on Monday. Took the whole day. We have read the Mosaic Law concerning the bed from A to Z. And guess what? It was successful apart from one mistake. An axe here. If you chop wood with an axe that is dull, you're going to worn yourself out. So why be lazy and work more than necessary? Why be lazy and work more than necessary? All of you have had problem with GIS furniture and IKEA furniture because you wanted your bookshelf put together without even finding the book. And we walk our Christian walk without finding the book. That's why you have problems. How can you put your spiritual life together without reading 1st and 2nd Chronicles? At least you're going to get sleep. But we try to solve problems. Counseling. I need to do counseling, my wife. I suffer this and that. Let's do counseling. Maybe it's be good to start to read the text to discern if your counselor will tell you the truth or just give you an aspirin to chew on. The more you botch, the more you have to do it again. In our faith, the more you remain immature, the harder it is to apply the truth. How can you apply something that you don't know? I don't know how to operate the machinery that my brother Brandon here operates. If you put me on a grader tomorrow, I swear to make a mess with it. I've never been trained. So, beloved, I beg you on a more serious note right now, not to try to have a sense of humor. I told you that I want you to be on the place of the right, the place of honor. In here, you will never stop, as far as I'm here, receiving messages from between 30 to 40 minutes to ground you. And you will look at your mirror because you have only 6 or 7 inches mirror to look back. And you will see slowly, not never finished, but you will see your problems fading away. Say, in the past that was a problem for me. Now, bring me more. On this life here, it's how to cope with life. The book of Ecclesiastes is a must here. Set a guard over your mouth. It's for François. He wrote it to François. So you should be jealous of me, John, because Solomon think about me instead of thinking about you. He said, François, you set a guard over your mouth here. 12 to 15. Words from the mouth of a wise man are gracious. I love the word gracious. While the lips of a fool consume him. The beginning of his talking is folly, and the end of it is wicked madness. Yet the fool multiplies word. No man knows what will happen, and who can tell him what will come after him? The toil of a fool so wearies him that he does not even know how to go to a city. Proverbs 15:4. That's Solomon that wrote them. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness, thank you, therein is a breaking of the spirit. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 3. For a dream comes true with a multitude of business, and a fool's voice with a multitude of words. We started a church here 2 years ago. You guys, some of you have been church planters, you've been involved in ministry, and take ministry very seriously. For a dream comes with a multitude of business and wisdom, but only words, we will do this and we will do that, does not count. It needs to be accompanied by action. Okay, I have a little bit more to say here. The word for grace here, gracious speech in verse 12, is the famous word hen. Go back. Do I need to go back? I missed something? No. The first famous word is hen. Gracious speech type of thing. That's why I went to Proverbs 15:4 and Ecclesiastes 5:3 and 6:11. 6:11 was not there because it was a mistake from me. The words of the fool displays one thing. The words of the fool displays one thing, and I've been there, and I'm still there sometimes. This is something that I need to work on. It displays ignorance. He does not know enough, you know that proverb, to come in out of the rain. That's an English proverb. I took it. That's what they use here. He doesn't know enough to come in out of the rain. So he stays there, idling, still talking. Wisdom, number 5. Coming to an end. Let me drink. wisdom kings and rulers. Of course, in the time of the regime of Solomon, which was not democratic, because Israel was a theocracy. Let's finish our message. 16 to 20. Are you with me? Arno's in the text, beloved. Woe to you, O land, whose king is a lad and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, whose king is of nobility and whose princes eat at the appropriate time for strength and not for drunkenness. Though indolence, the rafters sag, and through slackness the house leaks. Men prepare a meal for enjoyment, and wine makes its life merry, and money is the answer to everything. Furthermore, in your bedchamber, do not curse a king, and in your sleeping rooms, do not curse a rich man. King and rich man goes together because usually the rich classes rules. For a bird of the heavens will carry the sound, and the winged creature will make the matter known here. Woe to the land and its inhabitants when people are ruling with incompetence and undiscipline. That's what we see. I'm not going to name anybody right now, but that's what we see among governments around the world right now. Okay? And it does include this one. Okay? When we have people of non-experience and so on. Isaiah here, it's negative in Isaiah chapter 3 verse 4. And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. It's not a positive thing, it's negative. The men's or wisdom are nowhere to be seen, they went astray. And he said, I will continue to put child, inexperience, undisciplined also, to be their leaders. The word lad here is na'ar, a young person, but it means also immature, okay? Given to debauchery. Those who drink all the time, starting in the morning, and it's all that they have in mind. Instead of using the drinks in a good sense and so on, they are in parties and conventions all the time, and that's all they think about here. Okay? I read to you Isaiah chapter 3 verse 4. That's a teaching for leaders of all levels. And even leaders of the church. They are now scarce and pleasers of men. Okay? We're coming to an election very soon, apparently. We're going to have choices to make. In verse 17 of the text, it says this, Blessed are you, O land, whose king is of nobility, and whose princes eat at the appropriate time for strength and not for drunkenness. Okay? Those rulers that have a copy of the law with them will succeed. Oh, François, you're thinking out of your mind. Now it's all thinking of yours. Yes, absolutely. The Prime Minister, the President of the United States should have a copy of the law with him because he has a position of influence. Justin Trudeau on his shelf in his office should have a copy of the Bible like Stephen Harper had. There is only one book that is the truth. And that's why I would never share my work with anybody else, because as far as it could be very hard to do, I have the privilege to be an expounder on the only truth. What greater reward can you get apart from this? That's a picture of your new Canada here. When you read 18 right here, I picture this way. Forgive me if I am not pleasing you right now. Through indolence, the rafters sag, and through slackness, the house is leaking. The rafter of Canada is sinking right now, and the houses as a nation is leaking. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. Our house is leaking here. Do you know why? I'm going to tell you why, and you will say, never heard that before. Maybe you did. Because our governments that we have actually removed the country from under the umbrella of the Abrahamic covenant by being anti-Jewish and pro-everything else than the Jews. Imagine the Abrahamic covenant at chapter 12 verse 3 in Genesis. I will bless those that bless thee, and curses the one that curses you. Country-wise, it means in season you will receive your rain and everything. I will bless you as a country. It's an umbrella against the heat. It's an umbrella against the cold. It's an umbrella against disease. And we are no longer under this umbrella. So fasten your seatbelt, grow home. Grow hold and go home.
Preach it.
Because you're going to see no better things here. The roof is leaking. And you know what I mean by direct application. Go to Cowichan, any direction you go, you always pass a house overgrown with thistles, and you can mow the lawn on the roof. You know what I'm talking about if you don't pick up your garbage. But it applies as a nation also. I was once proud to be Canadian. Now it's somewhat waning down. We're still good. We're still good, not on the right track. The Abrahamic covenant is something that all leaders of the whole planet should have in mind. Let's have a piece of pie or a specific relationship with the Jews, not to encourage their sinfulness, because some leaders out there are plain sinful, but to remember the wife of Jehovah and as a country have a specific place with them, like the Prime Minister before Trudeau had. We are with you, Israel. Verse 19, he needs to include all things, God's government, rulers, and people in general in verse 19. Eating and drinking is sanctioned by God, but with moderation, and banqueting table can easily then turn into revelry and debauchery. Okay? Solomon is well placed to talk. Solomon at the beginning of his reign was not drinking grape juice. But he knows when you go to excess and so on that it can be turned bad, and we can take his word. Money is the answer to all things? Yeah, positive and good. Money is the answer to all things. You can make a beautiful usage of money. Do you remember, Jan, the message I did, Mammon and so on, in the confinement of Solomon? Can use your money very wisely, and he can also cause lots of damage with it. It's a good warning for myself to all of us concerning the verse 20 when we criticize the government. But I'm not under the Persian rule and so on, you don't criticize the king because you're cooked. And we have countries like this. We have seen the news on Cuba and so forth. And in Russia, not too long ago, you cannot stand against the government because it's not democratic. Today it is, but at the time it was not. Here we have the right to do so. It has to be done with carefulness, a thing that I need to learn also. I conclude the message. My wife helped me with all of this. Remember number 1, danger of losing is one way. Can a fly ruin your wine? That was the original. Or perfume. It's me, Olga, that added it. I conclude with pictures only. If you have a fly, knowing the mosquito disease type of thing, or a fly in the Middle East, which can be very nasty in Egypt and so on, and it lands in your wine, you're going to throw it away and serve it in another glass. Standing firm in your calling, politics upside down. John, you're not an essential with your faith. Heck of a deal. Don't leave your post. Don't leave your position in Christ, which is eternal. Don't leave it. First of all, you're not even capable of losing it because he will not leave his post with you. We call it eternal security. Do you need explanation? That's the same Acts. Terry, I'm asking you to split one piece of wood. What do you choose? Want to be lazy and work more? Take this one. Ugh, I hate to look at this. Are you going to buy a padlock, my love?
I already have.
That's it. Harper Netanyahu. Think twice. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. I will bless those that bless thee. It works on all levels. Why? I'm going to close my message like this. A little bit more criticism, but truth. Why do you think that the church is so limping today? Anti-Semitism. We're the new Jews. There is no rapture. That does not exist anymore. The 1,000-year kingdom is allegorized. And you think that you're blessed because you have money in the bank? If this is your blessing to have money in the bank, keep it. I'm not interested. Why the church is not blessed? Because they have taken themselves outside of the Abrahamic covenant.
Amen.
Which in this place, what's the purpose of that local church again in the bulletin? To contend earnestly for the faith, to worship and serve our Messiah, Yeshua, as he commanded us in his word. I hate that purpose. I hate it. To contend earnestly for the faith. I would have loved to write something else, but we come to years in the faith that we need to stand up for what's truth. Brandon.